Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam. And this is a Hidden City Book Company production.
Everyone, just so you know, if you hear screaming children in the background, I have family over, and there's a bunch of kids running around doing arts and crafts. So I'm locked away in this room doing my arts and crafts, which is podcasting with Sam.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So, what did you want to talk about? You told me you're going to talk about several things today.
I did?
Yes, you did.
When did I say that?
All week since we recorded the last episode.
What? That doesn't sound right.
All right. I guess we're just going to jump into the episode then.
Well, now I'm trying to think. What did I want to tell you? I told you whenever I saw you. We ended up talking about stuff, right?
I guess we did. We had a nice long chat about the new Hellboy movie. I'm not going to get into it on the podcast because we try to stay positive here.
Yeah. When it comes to Lost, we're a little more critical because that's the main thing we're talking about. But we try to keep it upbeat.
Yeah, but still, like, Lost is something we like.
Yeah.
We're not going to sit here and do a podcast about something we hate. Ooh, like Game of Thrones. That would be such a negative podcast because I think we love Game of Thrones so much. We're just so heartbroken and pissed off, and we could slowly see it degrading as it went.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and it's the whole thing about punching down. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, damn it. Yeah. We're not going to do that.
Well, because it'd be so easy to, but yeah, that's why we're not doing it.
Yeah. So,
oh, well, I guess like the only thing I can remember was talking about the D&D movie. D&D or Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. Cuz I was thinking like what would be I've been thinking like, okay, potentially they get a sequel. What would be like a class or a creature that you would really like to see that they didn't get to or they just didn't have in the first movie? And I want on the main core group in the team amongst the thieves, I would like a dwarvish a dwarvish cleric.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think I would like if there were only X amount of classes that they featured in the first film. I would like to see more in the second, which Chris Pine is still confident about. I would like to see a proper wizard. And I would like to show them or show the audience like the differences between wizards and sorcerer, because we saw Simon's story and how he was so unsure of himself and how that made him a bad sorcerer. He just needed the confidence. But to actually to have a wizard in the party, someone who actually has to study and learn the stuff, I think that would be a cool little, just a cool little duo, the sorcerer and the wizard. And to see how much more Simon is more confident but also still unsure of himself at the same time. That would be kind of cool to see, to play off, especially because that must suck for wizards. They're like, damn it, I have to do all this studying and work super hard, and other people just get it.
So, and Johnny so and so can just do magic with his fingertips.
So I would like to see that. I would definitely like to see Chris Pine do more Bard stuff.
Yeah.
Because even though I feel like it was there in the movie, they could have shown it better, because there's a lot of times where like, how did he get out of this situation? It's like, oh, he talked his way out of it. He convinced the villains to let them live, to give them a chance to fight. And like, how do you do that? I'm like, dude, he's a Bard. That's what they do. They just never really showed it as an ability. They're like, oh, he's just a charismatic guy. Like, there should be more of like a magic to it. Like, oh, there is something magical in his charisma, in his words. So I like to see that. You could also play with different types of the classes we've already seen. You know,
Hmm.
I like to see. I don't know. Like Zank was a paladin. I want to see someone like a dark paladin,
Mm.
paladin of vengeance or something like that, or
Mm.
oathbreaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, there's just so many cool combos, especially considering that movie was made for the fans, but it was also made in a way that you can come in not knowing anything about D&D and you won't be lost.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what was cool. So I think that that's such a cool opportunity if they can do another one. It's like, okay, how do we bring the audience into this world a little deeper? So I don't know, and I think that would be cool, you know, and show the differences between like Michelle Rodriguez's barbarian character and then having someone who's an actual fighter. Because if you get into the game mechanics and all that stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a clear difference. How do you show that in a film?
Yeah.
You know, I think you could have fun with that.
Yeah.
So, and it's just also weird too. Like, I always thought it was weird that there's certain titles for these people. So, like, game mechanics, it makes sense. Oh, I'm playing a wizard. He's playing a sorcerer. I already explained the differences, you know. But
Yeah.
in the context of the world itself, I feel like that's just so. It feels like limiting on your world building. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a wizard. They have to study. This is a sorcerer. It comes kind of natural to them,
Hmm.
you know? That's a warlock. They sold their soul or something.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of just like the idea of like how does it comes in from this kind of like a higher perspective be, because it's either you're looking at it from a game perspective or you're just coming in from like a storytelling perspective. It's like this higher view of the playing field. It's like, oh, there's all these differences and blah blah blah. But what's the common man see? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, they're all freaking sorcerers, spellcasters. I hate them all.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know? And I think there's something kind of cool about that mystery. Like, I don't know if he studies. Maybe he's just evil.
Hmm.
Or maybe it was natural. You know, like I kind of like
Hmm.
that idea of not knowing what kind of spellcasters people are.
Well, I think too, like there's this idea of like, like uh especially in, older, in like past centuries, this idea that like reading and more knowledgeable stuff like makes you miserable,
Mm-hmm.
so or can lead you down the wrong path. It's like the only word you need is the word of God, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you read all these other books, and study all these things? Like, I could definitely see it's like the learning process being the path towards evil,
Mm-hmm.
for certain people. So then it's like, well, yeah, he must study because he's a freaking wizard, or because he's evil, or whatever. Like, yeah, he's sort of like this, like, especially amongst, like, the common man, like we were saying, it is, ignorance is sort of the thing that blinds them from like learning the differences between the
Mm-hmm.
classes.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's something like in a high fantasy world, it would be ignorance. But
Yeah.
what is it in Middle Earth? You know, a world where magic isn't that common. You
Hmm.
know, so that's not ignorance. It's just a very select few would know. You know,
Yeah.
even fans don't really know what class Gandalf is. You know,
Yeah.
if you were to just like put him into a box like that. But I don't know, because it like the melee classes also have the same thing. It's like, well, a barbarian is very barbaric and savage in their fighting style.
Hmm.
Whereas fighters, they're trained to be able to use any kind of weapon. So
Hmm.
really what it comes down to is just fighting styles,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So it's like, God, she's a barbarian. How dare you, sir? I'm a nice lady. You know?
Yeah.
It's just this weird kind of concept. Like, an example is the first D&D character I ever made was Billy Bobby Brown. 12-year-old overweight elf kid who's raised by dwarves, so his diet is consistently meat and ale.
Hmm.
And he's a warlock. Why? I don't know. I was going to leave that up to the DM. You know, His patron's a unicorn who has bestowed powers to him. It's something like it had something to do with his parents because Billy's parents were killed before, like, when he was little.
Hmm.
So it's not a traditional warlock thing of like, I'm going to sell you my soul for powers. It's like this was a gift bestowed upon Billy. But Billy's whole goal is to be a hero. So he takes this oath. So to Billy, he's a paladin and he doesn't
Hmm.
know any different.
Hmm.
But mechanically, he's a warlock.
Yeah, yeah,
And to me that makes more sense for a world. um
yeah.
I was just watching a video last night. I think it was Dungeon Coach, and he was saying like he doesn't think paladins should be a class,
Ooh,
and
okay.
I kind of agree because to me it's just like it's kind of paladins are like a decision or like a subclass. Like
Mm,
that's like saying you're a superhero. Well, nobody Batman doesn't consider himself a superhero,
yeah,
especially surrounded by the Justice League. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's just this kind of weird classification. Um, so I don't know. Like I think that's just something we're dealing with here now because it's D&D, and you're trying to separate lore from the rules and mechanics of the game while also trying to be true to the rules and lore of the game.
yeah, yeah.
Because and like they've jumped through leaps and bounds, to try to make the mechanics make sense in lore. You
Hmm.
know, there's a lore reason why spellcasters use spell slots.
Mm.
So it's limited. I'm like, okay, limited magic that makes sense, but spell slots? Well, I can only cast 4 or 5 first level spells a day, and then I have to rest or use other spell slots. That's just totally lame, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it should be something magical. It's like it's a power, it's a force, man.
Hmm.
I don't know how to control it. Like I've gotten used to it to a point where like I kind of know when to stop before I tap out.
Yeah,
But I also know how to push my limits and to reach in and to cast something really powerful, but it's a little dangerous because I know I'm
yeah,
pushing my limits. You can't have that in a lore that has mechanics. So I don't know.
yeah.
So much for what you wanted to talk about. It's just opened up a can of worms. I'm like, oh my god, Sam, brilliant
Jeez,
question.
man.
Thank you, friend of the show. You.
Yeah, no problem.
Excellent question, Sam. Now I just want to talk about D&D.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, yeah, especially because this is a hella good episode today we're
Hmm.
talking about, which of course is Lost, season 5, episode 6, 316. We're back, baby.
We're
We're
back.
back. In
We've
this
never
episode,
been more back.
I know, in this episode, we see the last 48 hours of the Oceanic Six on mainland before they make it back to the island.
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts?
Great episode.
Mm-hmm.
Great episode. Yeah, especially, it's like it's not like last episode wasn't good, but like this was like this is it, man. This is the juice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're getting back into like the little like the philosophical part of Lost that I feel like we haven't really touched on in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um and
and
yeah,
and very spiritual and
yeah.
religious like stuff, which they kind of hinted at throughout the show, but like they're really tapping in now.
Yeah, yeah, the fact that like a big portion of this took place like in the church,
Mm-hmm.
the whole talk about Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
between Ben and Jack. Yeah, just like so much of this is like it kind of like at a certain point I did kind of feel like, oh yeah, this is definitely an ABC show. You know, it's like I don't know. There was just something about it that like put me back in that mindset of like early 2000s television. It's being
Mm.
like, yeah, yeah, this isn't necessarily a religious show, but
Hmm.
ABC they do have a leaning, they do lean, to a little bit. But that's one
Huh,
of
I
the
guess
that's one
so.
of the yeah. But that's one of the things that's always fascinated me about um Lost is that it at its core it is a show that is all about faith and belief and challenging faith and
Hmm.
and what that even looks like. It like we're not even talking about it in the basis of strictly Catholicism, you
Hmm.
know it's just the idea of belief in a higher power. That much for most people, especially for one of our main protagonists, Jack. Just the idea of a higher power is
Hmm.
too much, is too much for them, you know
We've been saying it since season one, how like Jack and Locke really represent what this show's about, and it's
yeah.
science versus faith.
Hmm.
You know, um, yeah, and that, yeah, all the way since season one, like it's crazy that
Yeah.
here we are now, especially this episode, to see where both of those men are now.
Hmm.
I don't know, man. I'm all for it. Bring in that science versus faith talk any day.
Hmm.
I love it. Um, yeah, this episode really felt like, you know what it felt like? It felt like a season premiere because we had
Kind
talked
of, yeah.
about how like the last two or three episodes it was moving along, but I don't want to call them filler. It's like certain things need to happen and we need to witness it happen for the story to continue.
Hmm.
But while that's happening, like we need to see what's happening on the other side as well.
Yeah.
What they feel like is almost they feel like kind of half episodes. We'll get a
A little
really
bit,
good one
yeah.
about the six, and then everyone's time skipping on the island. It's just like a couple of scenes here and there. And then
Hmm.
the next week will be vice versa.
Yeah.
But this episode, it really kind of set up kind of the future of the show because by the end they get back.
Hmm.
But the whole concept of this episode is like the last 48 hours in LA. Um, but we don't see everyone's perspective. It's pretty much just from Jack's perspective.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty big questions this episode leaves open. So I'm assuming like, oh man, are we going back to flashbacks now?
I think once we like settle into whatever's happening at the end of this episode,
Yeah.
I definitely think we're gonna start getting flashbacks, but to this time, the
Yeah, to
last
this
48
the last
hours.
48 hours cuz like every single character who like all the six somehow end up back on this plane
Hmm.
and Sun's really the only one where like okay, yeah, she's back.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, why did Kate change her mind? Why is she so distraught? How did Saeed get arrested? Hurley was in jail last time we saw him, so I don't know
Hmm.
how he's on the plane. Ben calls Jack all bloody. I'm like, oh god, what is
Hmm.
happening?
Hmm.
So yeah, man, I don't know.
I
God,
have
this is such a good episode.
Yeah, I have some theories and I'm pretty scared.
Uh oh, about
Yeah.
what?
Oh, just about all of that.
Okay,
Yeah, about or maybe not all of it, but just like certain stuff. But we'll save that for the end of the episode.
okay. Um, let's see. Let's just going through some of my notes here. The lighthouse? No, 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 no. The
The
lamppost.
lamppost, that's in one of my notes. I'm like, that is obviously a lighthouse.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what?
Like like that's so lame.
Yeah, the lamppost?
The lamppost, get out of
The
here.
symbol's a freaking lighthouse. Did they film that before the scene with the lighthouse image?
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Uh,
man. But
I
it's
don't know.
cool that it's like a station and it's under the church on mainland. And it's
Mhm.
the freaking, it's like the pendulum room,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
time room.
Yeah. Yeah, my thing is like, how does she know all this? How does she know all of this?
The computer, Sam. The computers. I don't know.
Ugh. Ugh, she got it from the internet.
Yeah, but it's also interesting too how she said like that's how they found the island in the first place.
Yeah.
They were able to like track it. I was like, "Oh
Hmm.
crap."
They were able to track not where it was going to be, but when it was going to be.
Kind of.
Yeah,
It's
or
almost the
something
opposite.
like that.
They were trying to find out where it had been and where it is,
Hmm.
but then they changed their tactics and tried to figure out where it's going to be and
Yeah,
when.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay, fine.
I'm like, wow, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, so in this episode, find out Locke killed himself.
Yep. He hung himself.
Uh huh. And he left Jack a suicide note,
Hmm.
which Jack, being Jack, stubborn man, hard headed, he didn't want to read it until the end when
Hmm.
he's on the plane, and all it
Hmm.
says is, "Oh," because he even puts it back in the casket and he says, "I've heard what I've heard all you had to say,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, it's probably just a pride thing, but
Oh,
also I
100%.
but I think it's also what Ben told him. He's like, I think you're afraid that he blames you
Hmm.
and you're the reason he kills himself.
Hmm.
You know?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's so that's Jack's biggest thing. Jack's biggest thing is using his pride as deflection.
Yeah.
Because he's so guilt-ridden, you
Yeah.
know, and it, we've seen what happens when he allows himself to be consumed by that guilt, you know, and that's where he's, over here drinking and, crashing his cars, almost killing people,
Yeah.
telling Kate in the middle of the night that we got to go back. Like this is what happens when Jack gives himself over to those guilty feelings. Jack at his like everyday quote unquote normal function is deflecting, is not allowing his pride to be injured by anything, and especially with somebody who he has a truly noted contested history with, like Locke.
Hmm.
um so yeah, but it was the thing. I called it out and I told Kat as we were watching it. Once like the stewardess gave Jack the note back, I was like, they're not getting to the island until Jack reads the note.
Mm.
That's how this works. It's like
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense, but it's the fact that it doesn't make sense is what makes the most sense. It's like I had a conversation about the ending of The Return of the King, the
Hmm.
movie, where spoilers for Lord of the Rings Return of the King, where right at the climax, Gollum has the ring and Frodo like pushes him over the edge, and Gollum falls into the lava, and he melts, he disintegrates, but the lava cools around the ring.
Hmm.
And it was something that I've always noticed that detail, but it never clicked for me why that detail until the last time I watched it. And it's because the fight's not over. Frodo is still hanging on to the side of the cliff. Sam's trying to pull him up, and Frodo hasn't decided yet if he's going to let go or let Sam help him up.
Mm.
And it's within those seconds that the ring is still allowed to exist because the fight isn't over. It's not it really doesn't make any sense. It's all about thematics. It's the theme of the movie.
Hmm.
And it isn't until Frodo fully lets go of the ring, like it is fully done. He puts his second hand up and Samwise grabs it, lifting him up, and then we get the final shot of the ring as the little like rock formation disintegrates and the ring goes into the lava and then everything gets destroyed. It's the theme.
Yeah.
And that's my long-winded way of saying that's how they get back to the island. Jack has to give himself over to what he's afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to confront that fear head on.
Mm-hmm.
So once he reads the note, and me thinking like it's not gonna be a long thing. Like I'm thinking like, are we gonna get, like Terry O'Quinn's like voiceover as he's like reading the note or whatever? No, it's the shortest thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you had believed in me. And then as soon as Jack takes that in, well, we hit turbulence, and
Mm-hmm.
then we're off to the races.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking
It's
like
magic, dude. It's magic. Like
yeah.
Lord of the Rings, it's magic. Lost, it's magic. It's anything that cannot be explained. We call it magic,
Hmm.
until we figure out how it works.
Hmm.
But we've seen so much stuff in this show that it's like it's freaking magic, man.
Yeah.
Maybe not in a typical sword and sorcery type that we're used to, but
Hmm.
maybe in a
Yeah,
more
not definitely not the D&D type. Yeah.
yeah, maybe something more like the a more spiritual kind of
Hmm.
of magic, or I don't know, man. Like I love it, and it's just it makes sense for Jack's story. Like what I love what Ben was telling him about Thomas, and he's like, well, how's the story end? Thomas being the one who doesn't believe in the resurrection, he needs to see the body.
Hmm.
And Jack asks, well, how's it end? Does he believe? And Ben just says, we all believe eventually. I was
Hmm.
like, oh man. I'm like, that's so cool. Like I love that. And like, yeah, so it's perfect that you bring that up about the letter. It's like, yeah, that's kind of like the catalyst, it's
Hmm.
kind of the key. Um, and I just like the whole concept of how they got back. They had to recreate it in the best way they could,
Hmm.
you know? Uh, even so much so that like Saeed's arrested again,
Hmm.
and it's like, hmm,
Hmm.
almost seems a little bit like divine intervention.
Yeah. Yeah. Even so much so that our boy Hurley is reading another comic in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And like I don't know. It didn't really seem like that was like his
I
intent,
I mean that
but
wasn't his intent, but that's like the small detail that I picked up on, that I
yeah,
was like,
like
hey,
I
yeah.
just I love that. He has that comic. He has a guitar, which may or may not be Charlie's. Maybe it's just a guitar because Charlie had a
Oh, yeah,
guitar. You
yeah.
know, it's just those little things. I'm like, man, that's
Oh
cool.
my God. Is the guitar filled with heroin?
Yes, yes, it is. But I
This might
also
carry
love
on.
talking about character moments. It's revealed that Hurley bought out most of the plane seats.
Dude, what a
Talk about a
he's my
hero move,
hero.
you
He's
know?
my hero for sure.
And when he finds out that there's a standby line, he's like, no, there's no standby. I bought those seats, and he gets to play the rich asshole card. He's like, no, nobody's
Hmm.
taking those seats. I need them. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh wow. I'm like, that's good on him. Hurley's such a good guy through and through.
Hmm.
They had a body on the first flight. They have a body now. It just seems like
Hmm.
it was meant to be. And Jack is starting to realize that. He's like, maybe and Kate's not having any of it, but Jack's like, maybe this was supposed to happen,
Yeah.
which is such a turning point for Jack, which is ironic because his whole character is like he needs to be the one to fix things. He's obsessed with fixing things.
Hmm.
And then so like if you think of it in that terms, like, oh man, this isn't really development at all. He's just doing whatever it takes to fix things.
Hmm.
And like he's the one person to look quote unquote happy going back. Like this whole
Hmm.
episode he was smiling, and it's like he realizes he has a chance to fix things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh dude, that's not really character growth, but he's starting to believe question
Hmm.
mark
Hmm.
and I love that for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I do too.
we met Jack's grandpa for some reason.
Randomly, yeah.
It just kind of felt like we need to kill time and we need to get his dad's shoes.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say about it. I'm like, there really wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
It was
It
so
was
weird.
it was so interesting though because the way his grandpa like looked and talked about the shoes like felt like he knew something. Like he knew
Yeah.
something was up. Like that was just the way like the scene was shot, the way the guy was acting, you know.
Uh,
Probably not, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was just a weird little thing of like, yeah, I guess it would make sense though. Like Jack would really wouldn't have anything of his dad's,
yeah.
you know. I mean, he even tells Kate that, you know, it's like he insisted they bury him in white tennis shoes because that's what he had, and he didn't want to take the time to go buy him shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just a little thing I loved of like Jack taking the time to take off Locke's shoes and put his father's shoes on Locke,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like,
I
yeah.
I love that. Like it was a good moment, but I love the scene where Eloise tells Jack he needs to give Locke something of his father's. And
Hmm.
like Jack snaps. Like he's pissed. And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Oh, this is really interesting because like we said, we've see what Jack's doing. He's willing to do whatever it takes to fix things. And that's certainly the route his character arc's going. And then this shell drops, and it's like so devastating for him,
Hmm.
you know. And it's
Hmm.
not so much that like we know his relationship with his dad, and it's not like that's a sacred thing, you know. This is my dad's stuff. I can't part with it. It's not that kind of thing,
Yeah.
but it's like
Yeah.
it's almost the fact of like rubbing it in Jack's face, like
Yeah.
you were wrong. You know, you
Hmm.
need to give Locke something of your dad's. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, geez.
It's yeah, it's that thing of like Jack is willing to do everything to fix things except fix himself. Like work
Yeah.
on himself,
Uh huh.
work through his own
Yeah.
BS.
Yeah. He's
And how
willing.
many
He'd rather go back to the island than go to therapy.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Man,
Man, typical.
that's what they needed on this island. A
A
therapist.
therapist?
Maybe there's
Oh
a
man.
therapist on this plane. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's the guy who just suddenly popped up behind Jack in the Air Guam line and
Uh
was just like,
huh.
"Hey, I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you."
Uh huh.
I wrote in my notes, it was like, and that's a new cast member, ladies and gentlemen.
Dude, like everyone in the cabin, right? It's
Mhm.
our people we recognize except for him and like I don't know the Marshall lady who's with Saeed.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
guy though, I don't know how to say his name. It's Saeed Tagamori, I think.
Okay.
From John Wick 3 and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
When I saw him,
recognize
I was like,
him.
I recognize this guy.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so that's cool. I was like, cool.
Oh,
Oh, man. Oh, good.
I was just gonna say real quick, we need to find out what happens in this 48 hours because Saeed shows up in handcuffs, and for the first time in 5.5 years of this show, he doesn't have a beard.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
God, you're right.
Mm-hmm. The case of Saeed's missing facial hair, just like the case of Jack's missing chest hair.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. They probably ran off
yeah,
together.
probably.
They braided each other into each other. I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, wow. I didn't even think about that. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I want to jump back to the top of my notes because it's the first note that I wrote right at the top of the episode. I'm like, wouldn't it be so funny if Kate just died right there?
That's it.
Like,
It's over.
no muss, no fuss, just boom,
Yeah.
gone. Uh
Which I have
you
to
know, yeah,
say, listeners, Sam pointed out to me that he actually took notes this episode.
I don't know what it was. I think I can count on one hand how many times I've taken notes for this episode, and this is the second time. Yeah, for the whole show, this is the second time I've taken notes. I don't know why. Maybe it was just the mood I was in last night, but I
Yeah.
was just like, I was just firing off. I'm like, man, that's weird. Man, why don't they know this? ooh, let's talk about Thomas. Like that's great. I love this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the thing that kicked it off. It's just like it would be so funny if we just unceremoniously killed Kate. You
Yeah.
know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, there we go. Like she's
Dude,
gone,
and top of the episode, talk about a banger opening. Like, that's
dude.
it. They're
How
back.
does how does Jack keep getting into the jungle completely unharmed
I know.
and
I don't know.
alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, you saying it at the beginning of our episode was perfect. Like this feels like a season opener. This
Yeah.
feels like yeah, just going back to the same opening shot, the same opening moment where he's just close up of the eyes opening, he's in the jungle
Hmm.
alone, disoriented. I'm like, dude, what's going on here? Like what was in the water in for this writer's room specifically being like, we're pulling out all the stops, baby. It's
Yeah.
episode 6 of season 5,
Yeah. Well,
you
funny
know?
enough, this episode was actually episode 7. The next
Ooh.
episode was filmed first, but for
Hmm.
whatever reason, they decided to switch it.
They switched it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I'm like, okay, so it's going to be interesting watching next week's episode knowing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll talk about
Okay.
that at the end when we tease next week.
I'm sure we will. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say it.
Say it.
I am not a fan of Kate.
Dude, I really want to know what was going on in this episode.
I wanted to know. And she's over here, showing up in Jack's apartment, in the middle of the night. She's crying, but she won't tell him anything.
Uh-huh.
He's like, "Where's Aaron?" And she's like, "You'll never ask me that question again." And then she just starts making out with him. And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. You haven't earned this, ma'am. You
Yeah.
have not earned any of this. Any of this, like, secrecy, any of this, we're not going to tell each other information stuff." I'm like, "No, I don't
Yeah.
care." After everything, Jack and I are different people. I did be like,
It's
"No."
the self-esteem song from Offspring, man. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't.
Ugh.
Sam wouldn't. He would have shut the door. I I'm like Jack. I would have. But here's where I think I differ from Jack. I would try to hold on to my self-respect, and in the morning I
Mhm.
would be petty about it.
Wow.
It's like I know I screwed up. Okay, Kate? I know. I'm a simple man, okay? And I make mistakes and I know when I've made them.
Oh wow. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Kate showing up pissed off. What were we talking about the other day about Kylie Jenner? Kylie Jenner showing up out of nowhere. It's the same thing. I'm a weak man, Sam. But I would be petty about it. And I would tell her exactly what you said. Like, one, Aaron's family.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you haven't earned this. Three, I'm the one person trying to fix this. All
Mm-hmm.
of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I don't know. But Jack, man, and I don't like using this word, but I have to for the context of this episode.
Uh-oh.
He's simping hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, he's all smiles and he's making Kate breakfast and coffee, and
that's
she's just
true.
like,
Yeah, even she's like not about it. And I'm like, Jack, this isn't Kate. Kate
yeah,
is not the, the the oh, how do you like your eggs in the morning? She's
yeah,
not that kind of person to be there to stick around for the eggs.
mm-hmm,
She was gonna go, you
uh-huh,
know? Yeah, like it's the thing. It's obviously, the big trope of the show is that people don't communicate.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I think a one that's also just kind of like overlooked or we haven't talked about is that these people don't care to get to know one another.
yeah,
Even though they've all been through this huge traumatic experience together, the whole Jack, Kate, Sawyer dynamic is all three of them fundamentally misunderstanding each other,
mm-hmm,
you know? Um, because like, Kate's just playing hard to get with both of these guys, and the second they, start to like show I'm ready, I'm down, like I am it, I am gonna be your rock for five ever. Uh Kate's like, oh nope, emotionally unavailable, can't
Mm-hmm.
do it,
Mm-hmm.
but then once they turn away and once they give her back, she's like, but what
Yeah.
about me,
Yeah.
like,
Once Juliet shows up, what about me?
yeah, yeah.
Anna Lucia
And
shows up, what about me?
what about me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it's a thing, like obviously we only have half of the equation. We don't know what Kate went through
Yeah.
to even consider going to
Yeah.
the island, to even consider leaving Aaron
Yeah.
alone potentially. Like, and I just use alone to mean like without Kate.
No, he's by
Like,
himself, dude.
yeah. He's just in the house. He's fine.
She
She
left
left the
him
TV
some
on.
grapes,
She left
Blue's
the snacks
Clues,
out. Yeah.
and a
his
pistol.
flavor his
There you
favorite,
go.
blankie, and yeah, pistol. He's fine. He's
Mm-hmm.
good. He's Magic Island baby. He'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I just like, yeah, Kate hasn't earned any of this, and I'm just like, I'm ready for the other shoe to drop, to just be like, all right, Kate, what's going on,
What's up?
and yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. However, she does have that line though when Jack's like, "Don't you think like maybe this was supposed to happen? Saeed is here, blah blah blah." She's like, "Maybe they just bought tickets," and he's like, "Yeah, but we're together." And she says, "We're on the same plane, Jack. It doesn't make us together." Oh, and that's Jack's whole thing. We need to live together, or we're gonna die alone.
I'm sorry. Cut. Can we? Matthew, come here.
Uh-huh.
I like it.
Hmm.
It needs to be a little more desperate. It needs to sound a little more desperate. Okay.
Okay.
And slated, action.
We need to live together, or we're gonna die alone.
Cut. Perfect. It's great. Thank you very much.
It's the exact same thing. No, I will say this though. Matthew Fox killed it this episode. He's my
Oh,
MVP for this
100%.
episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, such it felt so good to have Jack, a Jack centric episode, and it to be this good.
Hmm.
Like it feels like it's been a while.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of ensemble episodes lately, but it this really felt like classic Jack, like leader Jack, and I think
Hmm.
that's kind of the point. Like he's fixing things again. He's found his place again, his role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, speaking about finding your place and having no facial hair, guess who else is back? My
Frank.
boy Frank. Frank Lapidus.
Oh, man. The second I heard his voice, I was like, I know that voice. Oh, it's Frank.
That
And
was
then he
such a
came
cool
up.
reveal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like two times this has happened in the episode where I'm like, oh, it's that. Oh no, they don't know.
Oh
Like, yeah,
no.
like when Frank is just like, hey, buddy, oh yeah, I fly in and out of time. Is that Saeed? Is that Kate? Hurley? We're not going to Guam, are we? It's like,
That's all we
oh
see of him during that
no.
episode. I'm like, oh man, Frank, you're in it, man.
Oh, Frank, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Man, that sucks. Um,
Yeah.
man, oh yeah, that was crazy. Just like, I don't know, like this was just a fun episode. This isn't this is an episode for Lost fans. This is an
Yeah.
episode for the people who are sticking it out, who like us are like, I'm here for the character. The
Yeah.
reveals and like the hows and the machinations, I'll still be upset about it, but I'm in this because of the character journey, man.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then just the fact that, like, oh man, like all of these people are here again.
Again,
I'm like, oh,
it's
that gets me,
it's
man.
such a good feeling. Like we're 5 years into this show, and like it
Mm-hmm.
feels earned. This
Yeah,
moment,
yeah,
this episode feels like earned.
yeah.
Um, and you know what? Like, not to compare apples and oranges, but like, you can't do this with a show like Dark. You know, you could
Yeah.
probably try to do something similar, but like, so much of this was just, again, it's fun and it's an adventure. And it's like, how
Hmm.
are you moving all these pieces together? You know, like,
Hmm.
ah, man, Dark was such, it's such a different kind of beast that like, you can't have the amount of fun that you have with Lost with Dark.
You
It
would
will
have
like
to,
break the world, you know?
yeah, you would have to fundamentally change the show that Dark is.
Yeah, it
You
would be
know,
the fan backed fourth season with new showrunners, and those
yeah,
showrunners are us.
yeah.
Dark. Yeah,
We've got to go back to Winden. Na, na,
exactly.
na, na, na,
And
na,
it's all in English because we don't speak German, so
na.
it's easier to make.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Dude. So then after that, pretty much the end of the episode, Jack, Hurley, and Kate all wake up back on the island,
Mm-hmm.
and who runs into them?
Aborigin.
Our boy Jin. Man, they're giving him
Aborigin.
the twist endings again, you know?
Oh man,
Uh
I love it. This was the second moment where like because you know they're all asking like where's Saeed? Where's Ben? You know, and all this stuff. And then we hear a rustling. I'm like, what? And then we see heavy movement and we hear a radio. My first instinct was like, oh, it's the van. This is great. And then it pulls up and it's brand new. And I'm like, that's a brand new van.
hmm
Oh no. It's a new van. It's Dharma. They've traveled through time. Oh no.
hmm
And then yeah, and then it's just Jin in a
It
Dharma jumpsuit. And I was like, oh thank God.
yeah, it's like, oh, it's Jin. Okay.
Everything's fine.
Dharma Jin?
Dharma Jin.
Okay, so we're gonna have to figure out what happens to Jin. Because last time we saw was the Flash, right? When Locke does the wheel again.
Yeah, yeah.
Man.
Well, yeah, we didn't even see them because the last time we saw them was when was after Locke had gone into the well.
Yeah, and the
Sawyer
whale's
was
gone
holding,
now.
yeah, Sawyer was holding the rope and it's just sticking into the ground.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and of course, the very last thing that Jin told Locke was, just tell son that I'm dead.
Yeah.
Don't let her come back here. It's like, man. So it's gonna be beautiful, but it's gonna be so sad when they find each other again.
Yeah.
And I'm probably gonna cry.
Probably. Damn, it seems like so long.
Yeah,
A year
a year.
in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Longer.
Longer in Showtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
All right, man. MVPs?
Um. Yeah. I'll give it to Jack.
Yeah, I gotta give it
Yeah.
to Matthew Fox.
Especially like it's refreshing to see this sort of like rekindled spirit because Jack has just been so dejected and just so
Yeah.
out of sorts, this whole time. Like yeah, just really just like kind of just living in this depressive state. Um
hmm
and yeah, like so seeing Matthew Fox like get this idea that maybe this is the right thing to do and then slowly just doing things that like it's like we said like he's slowly opening up to the belief, putting on the
hmm
shoes, reading the letter, agreeing to go in the first place, like all of these things is like he really is opening up to that. I'm like that yeah, I don't know. The way Fox is playing it is great.
Yeah. So my question for you,
Hmm.
where are we?
Oh God,
Because
I don't know.
because we even said to like, okay, last season, would we be with the six? Would we make it off the island, or would we get left behind?
Hmm. I think I did we answer that?
I don't remember. I know we would have stuck together. I know that.
We would have stuck together. I think my caveat, 'cause it's we're Boy Scouts, dude. And I feel like that would have kicked in that moment and be like, hey, everybody else, like
Women and
you,
children first.
yeah, women and children, elderly, like all of y'all first. Anybody who's injured, all that stuff. And like
Yeah.
you and me are gonna be in the last like one or two boat rides. You know,
Especially
that's
especially at that in that scenario because they didn't realize that there was like a clock. They thought they
yeah,
were actually getting off. They didn't
yeah.
realize that, oh, we got minutes to escape.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Um,
We would have been, I think you and I would have been on the beach.
I would like to say in a Titanic scenario, I would do the heroic thing. I honestly don't know because I haven't been in that situation.
I mean, yeah, that's
But
true.
like in the case of Lost, where it's like there wasn't that pressing urge, it's like, okay, this is our route. They're kind of just waiting their turn. Like, I think
Hmm.
for sure we would have still been on the island. Also, there wouldn't have been room for us on the helicopter. So I think we'd be on the island.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure,
But
yeah.
just for conversation's sake, if we did make it off the island, would you go back? I man, that's tough because
You
like
know,
because now you're getting into this whole fiction thing. Like, okay, well, what happens to us when we're back? Yada
yeah,
yada.
yeah. And like, we've never gone so far in depth, of like what our like in-universe fiction would be.
My
Um,
in-universe fiction would be you
oh,
and I would capitalize off of this, and we would make a movie.
we can't talk about this.
You're directing, I'm starring, but it's like
Is it like a dramatization? It's a dramatic, it's a dramatization of the lie.
kind of, but not really. Like we would just do our own thing and slowly leak in like
We put
reality into it.
Yeah, we put in weird little things like people the subreddit for it is ridiculous. It's like it's almost 3 hours and the subreddit is like, I mean, it's good, but like the subplot where they find like a random hatch, on the island, that doesn't sound realistic.
Dude, because just think about it.
A
Like
submarine? Get out of here.
the Oceanic Six, we don't know what's happened, right? We know
Hmm.
Jack, Kate, and Hurley end up on the island again. But the concept of finding out the Oceanic Six all got on another plane and vanished and or crashed somewhere, think
Hmm.
about the conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah.
Then to find
Yeah.
out, oh, those Matt and Sam guys, they made this weird movie where they're stranded on an island.
Hmm.
And like,
Hmm.
dude, conspiracy theories would be going nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. But I think we would just feel so guilty for leaving our friends behind. And I would be crying as I hold my Oscar. I think we would go back.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mom,
think
Dad, I love you. I'm going to try and make it back one day.
I'll see you for dinner. And then, never come back until, hopefully we come back.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh man. Or someone just kidnaps us. Because as we see, I don't think Saeed is back going back on his own volition. you know?
yeah,
Something happened to get him back.
yeah, that's kind of my and it would make sense like either him or I honestly I think both him and Kate are coerced into going back to
Yeah.
the island.
And Frank's just like fate just brought him back.
Yeah.
So I feel like someone would kidnap one of us and it'd be like, if you want to see your brother back, you have to go to Guam. Here's your ticket. And you're like, all right.
And then I just see you in, first class and I'm like, "Matt,
What
what are you
the?
doing here?"
Wait a minute.
They said you were kidnapped.
Dude, they said you were kidnapped.
What?
What the?
Well, if you're not kidnapped, then I'm
Hurley.
not kidnapped.
Ben.
Oh God. Yeah, the second I see Saeed and Jack, I'm like, I'm leaving.
Hmm.
It's
Oh,
like
but we'd have like
we're
our
not
personal
doing this
assistants with
again.
us. Just because I like new side characters for the island
Hmm.
story.
I
So,
think I think in order for that to work, our personal assistants hate each other. Uh so like they knew that both of us were getting on the plane, but they didn't tell each other.
mhm.
So they're just like, hey, Sam's going on a plane. Be like, oh cool, Matt's also going on a plane. No information, nothing
Yeah.
else. Just Yeah.
Uh,
Ay, ay.
well, I kind of like that story.
Let's write it. Let's find out what happens.
All right, so predictions.
Uh, okay, yeah. Kate and Saeed are being coerced uh to getting back onto the island. Uh, so something bad's happened. Uh, oh, is Kate's mom dead?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I
But
feel like she
she was
is.
dying, right, when Kate goes to visit her.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like Kate's mom is gonna come into play somewhere in her storyline right now.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think Aaron has been like shanghaied from Kate and is also going to be brought to the island. Just he
Mm.
doesn't have to be there with them,
Yeah.
because I think that's the thing, like Eloise and Ben have just been adamant on like all of you have to come back, all of you have to come back, but have only really been referring to the six
Hmm.
and haven't mentioned they didn't mention Frank. They weren't really talking about Aaron. We just kind of assumed that Aaron would have to be there.
Hmm.
Um, and then we didn't even talk about him, but Eloise just straight up told Desmond that the island's not done with you.
Yeah.
And he just freaks out. He's like, no, like
He storms
that,
out.
yeah, like this island stole 3 years of my life. I'll
Hmm.
never get back. Like, no.
Hmm.
Uh yeah, and it's like, come on. One, Henry Ian Cusick is such a great actor that and Desmond is such a great character that you're just like, yeah, of course we're gonna want Desmond back. There's no way
Hmm.
his storyline's done.
Hmm.
But that leads me into my next prediction. I don't think things end well for Penny
Ooh.
because Ben told Jack that he was going to meet him at the airport because he had to go take care of some unfinished business.
Hmm.
And the only thing I can think of is that if I remember correctly, Ben straight up told Charles Widmore that he was going to kill his kid. He's going to kill his
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah.
And when Ben is on the phone, he's all bloodied and beat up, and I can't imagine any other scenario except Ben either killed or mortally wounded Penny in front of Charles and maybe Desmond or something. And I think Desmond's straight up he'll find a way back to the island
Mm.
solely for revenge.
Hmm. Damn, dude. That's good. We'll
What
have to wait
a
and see.
what a twisted web we've weaved
Hmm.
this show, man. It's like
It's
it
great.
also like it feels like a soap opera,
Hmm.
in the best
In
possible
the best
way.
possible way.
Like it's so twisty and turny and it just gets you, yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
leaves you wanting more, in this case in the best way.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll have all our answers and more answered next week when we watch Lost Season 5, Episode 7, The Life and Death of Jeremy Bentham, in which I'm assuming we see the life and death of Jeremy Bentham.
AKA John Locke.
Yeah, now that they're back on the island, I'm like, okay, I guess this would be a good time to actually see what Locke was up to after he got back.
Because it makes sense because like they've already been playing with time and how
Yeah.
like how like the narrative is playing out because like we said, like we saw Ben post island before we saw Ben leave the island,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. So it's interesting that like they kind of set that up for Locke, this whole like Jeremy Bentham thing. He's
Hmm.
talked to everybody, he's shown up to try and convince them to go, and we've seen Locke's body.
Hmm.
So now it's like and we saw all that before we saw Locke get off the island. So
Yeah.
yeah, it only makes sense that now we get to see what Locke was up to.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and when he left, he was in rough shape. His bone was sticking out of his leg.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
All right, we'll have to see.
The show.
Good show. All right. Till next time, everyone. I don't know. Find us online. You know what to do. Send us questions. Send us your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts.
Hashtag Lost Legacies. We'll find
Hashtag
it.
Lost Legacies. You can shoot us an email at lostlegaciespodcast@gmail.com. We also officially have the YouTube page up and running. Just
Woo!
look for us at Hidden City Book Co.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's kind of hard because if you there's no real way to search it, because if you search it, anything about a hidden city will pop up. It's a
Yeah.
lot of Hidden City book. It's all book reviews and stuff. So if
Mm-hmm.
you do want to follow us, hit us up on Twitter and we'll send you the link. I'm on Twitter at _Matt Jimenez and on Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Real. That's REL Texas Weirdo.
And also at the bottom of the description of this podcast, there should be a link where you can send us a text message. So there's just
Hey.
all these cool little ways of how to get in touch with us and, make this more of a community.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, let us know. And until next time, don't take it personally, but I hope you get lost.
Get lost.